Hello and welcome to the very first episode of NeuroEnglish Now. I'm John, your guide on this exciting journey to mastering English using the latest insights from brain science and neurodidactics. Together, we'll explore how your brain learns best and how you can apply these techniques to learn faster, better, and with more confidence. In each episode, we'll tackle a practical topic, from conversations and vocabulary to fluency hacks, all while keeping it fun and engaging. And the best part? You'll get tips and examples tailored to different levels, so whether you're a beginner or an advanced learner, there's something here for you. Today, I'm joined by Sarah, an experienced English teacher and fellow language enthusiast. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here and to help people feel more confident with their English.
Fantastic. Before we dive into today's topic, let me quickly explain why this podcast is different. We're not just about grammar rules or vocabulary lists. Instead, we focus on how your brain actually works when learning a language. By using techniques like spaced repetition, emotional engagement, and context-based learning, you'll find that English becomes easier and more natural over time.
Absolutely, John. And let's not forget the importance of fun and motivation. When you enjoy the process, your brain retains information much more effectively.
Exactly. All right, let's get started with today's topic, small talk. Small talk is one of the most important skills you can learn in any language. Why? Because it's the gateway to deeper conversations. It helps you connect with people, build relationships, and feel more comfortable in social situations.
And here's the good news. Small talk doesn't require perfect grammar or a huge vocabulary. It's all about being friendly, curious, and engaged. Even if you're a beginner, you can make a great impression with just a few key phrases.
That's right. So, let's start with some simple examples. Imagine you're at a party or meeting someone for the first time. As a beginner, you might say, "Hi, how are you?" But if you are an advanced learner, you can say, "Hi, how's your day been so far?"
Notice how the advanced version is slightly more specific and opens the door for a longer answer. Adding a little detail makes your small talk feel more personal.
Totally. So here's another example. Let's say you're at a party and someone says something about the weather. A beginner might respond with something like, "Yes, it's sunny today."
Which is totally fine.
Oh, of course. But for more advanced learners, you could say something like, "Yes, it's beautiful. I'm hoping it stays like this for the weekend. How about you? Do you have any plans?"
And notice that difference. It's all about asking follow-up questions. Questions show interest and keep the conversation going, even if it's just a short chat.
Yeah, and here's the key. It's not about getting everything perfect. The goal is connection, not 100% accuracy. Thinking in terms of tone and curiosity makes the process way more fun. All right, now that we've covered some examples of small talk and how to keep conversations flowing, let's talk about a technique that can make all of this even easier: visualization. It's a super powerful tool that basically helps your brain practice without actually being in the situation.
Right? And it's not just about imagining randomly. It's about creating a real mental picture. For example, John, let's say someone wants to start a conversation in a coffee shop. How would visualization work here?
Great question. So you'd imagine yourself walking into the coffee shop, the smell of coffee, the murmurs of people chatting. Then picture yourself turning to the person next to you and trying out phrases like, "Hi, is this your first time here?" Or, "That coffee smells amazing. What do you usually order?"
What's amazing about this is that it helps prepare your brain. It's like you're rehearsing the moment, so that when it actually happens, it feels a little more familiar, less scary.
Exactly, because your brain doesn't actually know the difference between a real experience and a well-visualized one, so it's like practice without the pressure.
And when you combine visualization with spaced repetition, you're really setting yourself up for success. For those who don't know, spaced repetition just means reviewing things at intervals, kind of like exercising a muscle over time.
Yeah, so let's say you want to nail the phrase, "What do you recommend?" Start by repeating it today, then tomorrow, then in 3 days, and so on. Every time you revisit it, it sticks a little better. Pair that with imagining yourself actually saying it to someone, and boom, it's like double the power.
Okay, let's try this out right now. Listeners, picture this. You're at a party. There's music, people chatting in small groups. You see someone standing nearby who looks approachable.
Right? And you walk over, smile, and say, "Hi, how are you enjoying the party?" Then imagine them smiling back and answering. Maybe share something like, "I just tried these amazing appetizers. Have you had them yet?"
And as you're doing this, really focus on the little details. Think about how you're standing, what you're saying, how the other person is reacting. The more vivid the mental practice, the more prepared you'll feel in real life.
Exactly. It's about training your brain to be ready for the moment. And the best part, you're building confidence without even leaving your house. So now that we've talked about preparing with visualization and making conversations feel natural, let's dive into another key aspect, making it personal. Like sharing those little genuine details about yourself that make the interaction feel more authentic and relatable.
Exactly. It's those little touches, like sharing a hobby, a recent experience, or even something random like, I've been hooked on making homemade pizza lately. It makes you more relatable and opens the door for others to do the same.
Totally. And once you throw in a meaningful follow-up question like, how'd you get into that? Or what's been your favorite part so far? You're making the other person feel seen and heard. That's where the magic happens.
Right. And here's the thing. All of this isn't about being perfect. There's so much value in embracing mistakes. We had a student once who, let's just say, wasn't great at grammar, but totally nailed small talk because she was curious and open.
Oh yeah, I remember that. And it wasn't just about what she said, but how she said it, with confidence and honestly a lot of warmth. Her curiosity became her strongest tool, and she ended up making some really great connections.
So, for all of you listening, don't let the fear of making mistakes hold you back. Every time you speak, you're learning, growing, and getting better.
Absolutely. Think of every small talk moment as a mini experiment. Some will go better than others, but each one is a step forward. You've got this.
And the more you practice, the more natural it'll feel. So go ahead, ask that random question in the coffee shop, or share a little story about your day.
And with that, I think we're ready to wrap up. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. Remember, small talk is just the beginning, but it's such a powerful way to connect.
And on that note, keep practicing, have fun with it, and don't be afraid to make it your own. Until next time, take care. All right, let's kick things off with one of the most important parts of dining out, getting a table. Whether you're at a cozy cafe or a fancy restaurant, this is where your dining experience begins, right?
Exactly. And it's not as intimidating as it may seem. Let's start with the basics. A simple way to ask for a table is, "Hi, can I have a table for two, please?" Repeat after me, slowly. "Hi, can I have a table for two, please?"
Nice and clear. Let's do that one more time. Everyone repeat. Hi, can I have a table for two, please?
Great. Now, if you want to sound a bit more formal, maybe impress someone, you might say, "Good evening. Do you have a table available for two?"
Perfect for those date nights or special occasions. Let's repeat that. Good evening. Do you have a table available for two?
And if you have a reservation, it's even easier. You can just say, "I have a reservation under name Knight." Want to try that?
For advanced learners, let's step it up. Add a time to your request. Something like, it's for 7 p.m. under the name John Knight. Ready? Let's practice together.
It's for 7 p.m. under the name Knight. Easy, right?
It really is. And here's a quick cultural tip. In some countries, it's super important to be clear and direct about your timing and party size. Like arriving late might even mean losing your table.
Yes, absolutely. So always make sure to confirm your reservation details, especially at busier restaurants.
And hey, here's something fun. Practicing these phrases with a friend or mirror can help. You'll feel more confident when the moment comes.
Totally agree. Plus, practicing out loud also helps with pronunciation.
Okay, now that we've covered the basics, let's dive a bit deeper into the dining experience. Now that we've secured our table, let's shift to one of the best parts of dining out, ordering food. This is where it gets really exciting because, let's be honest, the food is the real star of the experience, right?
Exactly. And it's actually easier than it seems. Let's start simple for beginners. A straightforward way to order is, "I'd like the chicken, please."
Love it. Let's have everyone repeat after us. I'd like the chicken, please.
Okay, your turn. "I'd like the chicken, please." Nice and clear, just like that.
But if you're ready to spice things up a bit, and I mean linguistically, let's go with, I'll have the grilled chicken with a side of vegetables, please.
Longer but more descriptive. Let's break it down together. "I'll have the grilled chicken with a side of vegetables, please."
Your turn now. Try it out loud. And yeah, don't worry if it's, tricky at first. Practice makes perfect.
Now, what if you're undecided? Beginners, you can say, "What do you recommend?" Nice and simple.
And if you want to sound a bit more advanced, here's the upgraded version. Could you suggest something light and flavorful?
That's great if you're looking for healthy options. Repeat after me. Could you suggest something light and flavorful?
Perfect. Now let's talk about dietary restrictions, which, let's be honest, are super important to communicate. Depending on your needs, you might ask, is this gluten-free?
For a more advanced version, you could say, could you let me know if this dish is gluten-free?
Or maybe you're lactose intolerant. You could ask, could I have the pasta without cheese, please?
Let's try that one together. Could I have the pasta without cheese, please? Nice and polite.
And if you're curious about portions, and who isn't sometimes, you can go with, is this enough for one person?
Or, here's an advanced twist. Could you let me know if the portion sizes are suitable for sharing?
All right, let's shift gears for a moment. Vocabulary is a huge part of sounding like a local. How about medium rare? That's a classic for ordering steak, right?
Absolutely. It's how you tell them how cooked you want it. Medium rare means the inside is still a bit pink, perfect for tender and juicy meat.
And here's one that might be new to some, prix-fixe menu.
Ah, the fancy one. A prix-fixe menu is a set menu with a fixed price, and it often includes multiple courses. Great for trying a bit of everything.
I love that when I'm at like a really nice place. And hey, one more, on the side. That's when something is served separately, right?
Exactly. Like if you want your dressing on the side. Super handy to keep flavors just as you like them.
All right, so we've talked basic phrases, advanced tips, and even a little vocab. The key is to practice these until they roll off the tongue naturally. All right, so you've put your ordering skills into action, navigated the menu like a pro, and enjoyed a great meal. Now it's time for the final step, handling the bill. What do you say, Sarah? Ready to break this down?
Definitely. This is such an important moment, not just in paying, but also in practicing polite language.
Exactly. Let's start with a simple go-to phrase for beginners. Can I have the bill, please? It's direct, polite, and gets the job done.
Absolutely. And if you're splitting the bill with your friends, you could say, can we pay separately? Try that one with us. Can we pay separately?
Nice. Now for advanced learners, and if you want to sound a little polished, you might say, could we settle the bill, please?
Or try this. Would it be possible to split the bill between us? It's polite and super specific.
Good one, Sarah. Let's have everyone practice that slowly. Would it be possible to split the bill between us?
Perfect. And hey, don't be surprised if you hear the word check instead of bill. Some countries, especially in the US, say check instead. Simple example. May I have the check, please?
Oh yeah, that's a good cultural tip. Speaking of culture, tipping practices can vary a lot too. Like in the US, tipping is a big deal, right? Often 15–20% of the total bill.
Yes, whereas in many European countries, tips might already be included in the bill as a service charge. It's always good to check the menu or ask the staff if you're unsure.
Exactly. And in some countries, tipping isn't expected at all. But in those cases, a small gesture like rounding up the bill is appreciated. What about asking for receipts, Sarah?
Great point. If you need a receipt, a quick beginner phrase could be, can I have a receipt, please?
Right. And for advanced learners, try this. Could you provide an itemized receipt, please? I'd like to double-check everything.
That's especially useful if you're splitting costs and want to confirm the breakdown of charges.
Oh, and here's one last tip. If you think there's been an error in the bill, you could say, excuse me, I think there's been a mistake with the bill. Could you take a look?
Or, more advanced, I'm sorry, but I believe there's an error in the total. Could you confirm it for me, please?
Exactly. Politeness is key in moments like that. It really helps smooth out any awkwardness.
Totally. So remember, when it comes to paying, being clear, polite, and culturally aware goes a long way.
And that brings us to the end of this episode. Wow, it's been such a packed one, right?
It really has. Everything from getting a table to ordering food and finally paying the bill.
And we even threw in some cultural tips and fun vocabulary along the way. So, for everyone listening, don't just stop here. Go out and practice. Whether it's at a fancy restaurant or your local cafe, use these phrases and just go for it.
Yes, and remember, it's okay to make mistakes. Practicing out loud, even if it feels awkward at first, is how you'll build confidence.
Exactly. And hey, if you mess up, no big deal. Most people will appreciate the effort and it's all part of learning.
So on that note, happy dining, everyone. We can't wait to hear about your experiences.
Yeah, let us know. Until next time, take care and keep practicing.
Bye for now.
Hi everyone and welcome to NeuroEnglish Now. I'm your host John, joined as always by Sarah.
Hello, listeners. We're so glad you're here. Today's episode is for those of you ready to elevate your English to the next level with advanced phrases for conversations.
Yes, and here's the thing. Sometimes it's those high-level phrases that really set you apart. They're what make your English sound, not just functional, but polished and confident, like you're totally in command of the conversation.
Exactly. And we're not just going to throw out some fancy phrases and leave you hanging. Nope. We're diving into practical ways to learn and use them, rooted in neurodidactic techniques.
Neurodidactics, it's such a cool word, right? It basically means using research about how the brain learns to make language learning easier and more effective. And honestly, who doesn't want things to be easier?
Right? And we'll make this interactive too. So, grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and practice along with us today.
Yes, say the phrases out loud, like really out loud, even if you feel a little silly. It's all about building those muscle memories.
And hey, if you're not sure about neurodidactics yet, don't worry. By the end of this episode, you'll see how it really works. You'll totally get why it's such a game changer for learning.
So stick with us, because by the end of today, you'll not only have learned some brand new phrases, but you'll also have some tools to remember and use them confidently.
As John mentioned, it's all about building confidence with the right tools. Let's dive into why advanced phrases are such game changers. They don't just elevate your fluency, they add that polish and nuance that helps you build stronger connections in conversations.
Exactly. And nuance is really what we're aiming for here, right? Because anyone can say, I agree. But when you use a phrase like, I couldn't agree more, it's like you're adding this extra layer of connection. It shows confidence and emotional intelligence all rolled into one.
And speaking of connection, here's where neurodidactics comes in. Learning advanced phrases in context actually helps your brain create these stronger links. It's like you're filing the phrase under the right moment folder in your mental toolbox, so it's easier to pull out when you need it.
Exactly. It's not just about memorization, it's about wiring your brain for real-world use. That's why repetition matters. The more you hear, say, and practice these phrases, the more second nature they become.
And that's what we're here for. We're going to guide you through that repetition. We'll practice the phrases together, out loud, and in different situations to really lock them in.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to say the phrases out loud, even right now. Like really, wherever you are, just go for it. It's about building confidence and muscle memory, and yes, you're totally allowed to laugh at yourself if it feels silly.
Absolutely. Plus, the more you embrace the silliness, the quicker these phrases stick. Trust me, it's all part of the process.
Seriously, because once they stick, they're there when you need them. And when you can naturally pull out phrases like, I see your point, but I'd like to add a different perspective, it changes how people see you, how they respond to you. It's like, boom, instant upgrade.
So that's the big picture. Advanced phrases aren't just more words. They're tools to help you connect, express yourself, and grow as a speaker. And we're here to help you learn how to use them. All right, now that we've seen the big picture, let's focus on some specific advanced phrases for agreeing and disagreeing. And here's the thing. Not all agreement or disagreement is black and white. Sometimes it's about finding that subtle, polite middle ground where you can confidently navigate the conversation.
Exactly. Like if someone says something you 100% agree with, sure, you could just say, I agree. But doesn't I couldn't agree more just hit differently? It's like, boom, you're not just agreeing, you're enthusiastically on board. Let's practice that. Say it with me. I couldn't agree more.
I couldn't agree more. Now your turn, listeners. Go ahead, say it out loud. Don't be shy.
Nice. Now for the moments when you want to disagree, gently, of course. Let's say you don't really agree with someone, but you still want to keep the conversation positive. Instead of just saying, I don't think so, you could say, I see your point, but I'd like to offer a different perspective. It's polite, respectful, and keeps the dialogue flowing.
Exactly. And that phrase works in so many situations. Work meetings, social conversations, maybe even when deciding what movie to watch with friends. Let's practice it together. Repeat after me. I see your point, but I'd like to offer a different perspective.
One more time. I see your point, but I'd like to offer a different perspective. And listeners, go ahead, say it out loud with us.
Great. Now let's talk about those idiomatic expressions that advanced speakers use. For strong agreement, you could say, you've hit the nail on the head. It's like saying, yes. That's exactly right.
Totally. And it's a fun one to use. It's got personality. So let's give it a try. You've hit the nail on the head. Go ahead, listeners, your turn.
Now for disagreement. Politely, of course. Instead of saying, I don't agree, You could soften it with, I'm not entirely convinced about that. It's diplomatic, but still clear. Let's practice. I'm not entirely convinced about that.
One more time, everyone. I'm not entirely convinced about that. And remember, the tone you use really makes a difference. Try saying it with a thoughtful tone, almost like you're inviting the other person to explain their point more.
And here's the neurodidactic tip. Context and repetition are your best friends here. Take a moment to think of a specific situation, maybe a work discussion or even something light, like deciding on a restaurant with friends. Imagine yourself using these phrases in that moment.
Exactly. Visualization actually helps your brain create stronger memory pathways. It's like you're practicing twice. And don't forget to mix it up. Use these phrases in different tones. Try being super enthusiastic with, I couldn't agree more, or really measured with, I'm not entirely convinced about that.
Let's do this together. Pretend I disagree with something you say. I'll start. Repeat after me. I see your point, but I'd like to offer a different perspective.
And I'll jump in with agreement. Repeat this one next. You've hit the nail on the head.
See? Practicing like this, in small interactive bursts, really helps it stick.
Now that we've practiced navigating agreement and disagreement, let's take that foundation and apply it to one of the biggest conversation skills, expressing opinions with confidence. This is such a critical skill, especially in, let's say, professional settings or even in debates with friends. It can totally change how people perceive you.
Definitely. And the key here is to go beyond just saying, I think. That's fine for beginners, but we're aiming higher, right? Using phrases like, from where I stand, or, it's worth considering that, makes your thoughts sound more thoughtful, more deliberate.
Exactly. It's all about framing your ideas in a way that invites respect and attention. Like imagine you're in a meeting saying something like, in my view, this is a step in the right direction, instantly positions you as someone who's considered the options.
Right. And it's not just about sounding professional, it's also about flexibility. These phrases can work in casual settings too, like when you're discussing what movie to watch or where to grab dinner. From where I stand, sushi sounds like the perfect choice.
Haha, yeah. It's about making your point but keeping the conversation open and engaging. Let's pause here for some practice, everyone. Say this one after me. From where I stand, this seems like a logical approach.
Let's try it again. From where I stand, this seems like a logical approach.
Great, now put your own twist on it. Imagine a situation where you'd say this, and picture yourself delivering it with confidence. It's like rehearsing for the main event, you know?
Exactly. And speaking of confidence, let's look at another one. It's worth considering that. This is such an elegant way to introduce an alternative or a new perspective without being confrontational. Say it with us. It's worth considering that.
One more time. It's worth considering that. Go ahead, listeners. Try it out loud. Don't be shy.
And here's a neurodidactic tip. Try tying these phrases to specific situations. Let's say a work scenario pops into your head, like sharing an idea in a brainstorming session. Picture using, it's worth considering that, when presenting your thoughts.
Right. Visualization's such a powerful tool. When you pair a phrase with a realistic context, it's like creating a shortcut in your brain. The next time you're in a similar situation, boom, your brain's like, hey, remember this one?
And it's not just about work. This applies to any kind of discussion. Like, imagine you're talking about travel plans, and you say, from where I stand, a road trip would be more fun than flying. See? Precise and memorable.
Totally, you're not just giving an opinion, you're enriching the conversation. All right, let's practice one more. Repeat with me. While I understand the reasoning, I'd argue that...
Exactly. And it's such a polite way to challenge someone's viewpoint without sounding, I don't know, too forceful. Let's do it again. While I understand the reasoning, I'd argue that...
Perfect. So, quick recap while it's fresh. From where I stand, it's worth considering, and while I understand the reasoning. These are your go-to tools for expressing opinions confidently, whether you're agreeing, disagreeing, or even just throwing an idea into the mix. All right, everyone, now that we've honed our skills in expressing opinions with confidence, let's take it a step further and look at a powerful strategy to elevate your conversations even more. Asking advanced, open-ended questions. These are the kinds of questions that not only keep the dialogue flowing, but also encourage deeper engagement.
Exactly. Closed questions like, did you enjoy it? Can only get a yes or no answer. But an open-ended question like, what's your take on this? invites a much richer response. It's a simple tweak, but it makes such a big difference.
Totally. And here's the neurodidactic piece. When you ask open-ended questions, it not only keeps the conversation alive, but it also creates stronger memory connections because you're actively listening and responding. Let's try one now. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Let's repeat it together, listeners. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
And here's another one. What's your take on this? Notice how it opens the door for someone to share their unique perspective.
Exactly. Let's say it together now. What's your take on this? And go ahead. Practice saying it out loud wherever you are. Remember, building that muscle memory is key.
And let's make this fun. Picture yourself in a conversation, maybe a team meeting or a dinner chat. Now imagine using one of these questions. It can totally shift the vibe of the discussion, right?
Right. And for an even bigger boost, try pairing your question with a genuine tone of curiosity. That little touch makes the other person feel heard and valued. It's a win-win.
For sure. So, quick practice round. I'll say a question and listeners, you jump in with an answer. Ready? What's your take on this?
Great job. Now let's flip it. You ask us the question. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Nice. Keep practicing these back and forths on your own. Imagine yourself asking and answering these in real conversations. It's all about making it feel natural.
And as always, neurodidactic strategies like visualization can really lock these in. Try picturing yourself in a specific scenario using these phrases, maybe at work, in class, or chatting with a friend.
Exactly. All right, let's wrap things up. Today, we covered so much, from agreeing and disagreeing to expressing opinions and now deepening conversations with advanced questions.
And remember, the key is to practice out loud, visualize yourself using these phrases, and most importantly, have fun with it. Learning is a process, and every step counts.
Absolutely. We're so proud of the progress you're making, and trust us, these skills will pay off in big ways. Thanks for spending time with us on NeuroEnglish Now.
Take care, everyone, and happy learning.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to NeuroEnglish Now. I'm so glad you're here. It's always great to have you join us on this learning journey.
Absolutely. Welcome back, everyone. We've got a really exciting episode for you today, something super essential for mastering English grammar.
Oh yeah, we're diving into tenses. We'll be breaking down the present, past, and future tenses for you and giving you practical examples that you can actually use in daily life. Trust me, it'll make understanding grammar, well, way less intimidating.
And we've got neurodidactic tips, right, John? That'll help you learn these structures faster and retain them more easily as you keep practicing.
Exactly. So don't just sit back and listen. This episode is interactive. Be ready to practice with us by speaking out loud when we prompt you. It's all about action steps today.
Oh, definitely. You'll be mastering those tenses before you know it. So let's jump right in.
All right, let's jump right in as promised. We're starting with the present tenses, perfect for describing what's happening right now, talking about routines or how past and present meet. First up, the present simple. Let's break it down together.
Yes. This tense is perfect for habits, routines, and general facts. Take this example. I drink coffee every morning.
Or, the sun rises in the east. You get the idea, right? Now let's try it together. Repeat after me. I drink coffee every morning.
Go on, don't be shy. Say it out loud. This practice really helps. And for advanced learners, you can make it more descriptive, like, I thoroughly enjoy listening to classical music first thing in the morning.
Ooh, fancy. All right, next up, present continuous. This one's for actions that are happening right now or like around this time. For example, I'm recording a podcast right now.
Or, she's studying for her exams this week. These are things that might not be permanent, but they're happening in the moment. So, what are you doing right now? Think about it. Try saying it out loud.
Exactly, like, I'm listening to a podcast. That's one. Oh, and this tense is great for temporary situations too. You could say, I'm living in London for the summer.
Such a handy tense. Now, onto present perfect. This one links the past to the present. For instance, I've just finished my homework.
Right. Or, she has visited Paris 3 times. These examples show that something happened in the past, but it's still relevant right now.
And if you're up for a challenge, try adding time expressions, like, I've been to the gym twice this week. It's great for adding more context.
Yeah, advanced learners, this is your moment to shine. Try using this tense to talk about your recent experiences. Something like, I've met some fascinating people recently.
And remember, don't aim for perfection right away. It's all about progress. These present tenses really are the foundation for so much of your communication in English.
So now that we've mastered the present tenses, let's take a step back. Literally, we're moving on to the past tenses, which are super important for sharing stories and describing experiences. First up, past simple.
Exactly. So the past simple is for completed actions. Think of sentences like, I watched a movie last night.
Or, she went to the park yesterday. It's simple and straightforward, just one action in the past. Okay, your turn. Repeat after me. I watched a movie last night.
Great job. And advanced learners add some detail, like, I thoroughly enjoyed the movie I watched last night. It was a real masterpiece.
Nice touch. Now let's look at past continuous. This one's for actions that were ongoing in the past, kind of like a snapshot of what was happening at a specific moment. For example, I was reading when the phone rang.
Or, they were playing football all afternoon. Picture the scene while you practice. Try saying, I was reading when the phone rang.
Perfect. And if you're into storytelling, you can combine tenses, like I was reading when the phone rang and I realized I had forgotten to call back earlier.
Yes! It makes your stories richer and more dynamic. All right, let's tackle the last one, past perfect. This one's all about sequencing events. For instance, by the time the meeting started, I had already reviewed the agenda twice.
Right. It's like saying one thing happened before another thing in the past. Try this one. I had already eaten when she arrived.
Go ahead, repeat it. And for extra practice, think about moments from your own life. Maybe something like, by the time I got to the station, the train had already left.
That's a classic example. Advanced learners, use this tense to add depth to your stories. Mix it in with other past tenses for variety.
So, whether you're talking about completed actions, narrating scenes, or sequencing events, past tenses give your stories so much clarity and color.
We've seen how past tenses add clarity and depth to our stories, but now let's shift our focus to what lies ahead, the future. Future tenses are so fun to work with because they help you express your plans, goals, or even those on-the-spot decisions. Let's start with the simplest one, the future simple.
Yes, this one's great for promises or predictions, or even decisions you make in the moment. For example, you could say, I will call you tomorrow, or it will rain later today.
Exactly. And now it's your turn. I want you to create your own sentence about a goal or a prediction. Just say it out loud, don't overthink it.
And remember, for advanced learners, you can make your predictions sound more persuasive or confident. Like, I'm absolutely sure it will rain later today.
Nicely done, Sarah. All right, let's move to future continuous. This one is for describing actions that'll be ongoing at a specific point in the future. For example, she'll be traveling to New York next week.
Or, I'll be working late tonight. Now think of something you'll be doing later or next week. Visualize it and say it out loud. What will you be doing?
Right. And if you want to add more spice to it, say something like, by this time tomorrow, I'll be preparing for my presentation at the conference. How about that?
That's a great example. This tense is super handy when you're talking about plans or schedules. So keep practicing. It'll stick. Now, let's wrap things up with the future perfect. This one's all about goals and completion.
Right? It's for expressing something that'll be done by a certain time. Picture this. By the end of the quarter, we will have achieved all our targets. Fancy, huh?
Definitely. Or how about, I will have finished the report by Monday. Think about a personal or professional goal and make a sentence like that. Ready? Go for it.
Awesome. And for advanced learners, this tense shines in professional contexts. You can make it super specific, like, by the end of the year, I will have completed my certification program.
Boom! Future perfect mastery. The key with future tenses, honestly, is just imagining your plans and saying them out loud. It makes your practice feel real and a lot more engaging.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. We've covered a ton, present, past, and future tenses, and given you loads of examples to work with.
Yeah, and don't forget to use those neurodidactic tips. Picture those scenarios, practice out loud, and repeat phrases until they feel natural.
And hey, we'd love to hear from you. What grammar points or English challenges should we cover next? Your feedback really shapes this podcast.
Yeah, drop your ideas in the comments. And if you enjoyed today's episode, give us a like, hit subscribe, and share it with a friend who's learning English too.
Thanks for listening to NeuroEnglish Now. Keep practicing, stay consistent, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Bye for now, and happy learning.
Hello and welcome back to NeuroEnglish Now. I'm John, and as always, I'm joined by my amazing co-host.
Hi, everyone. We're so happy you're here with us today. If you've ever found yourself struggling to navigate conversations at the airport or on a plane, this episode is for you.
That's right. Today, we'll walk you through the essential phrases you need, from check-in counters to chatting with the person next to you on a flight. We've also added advanced variations if you're looking to kind of level up your English a bit.
And don't forget, we'll be using neurodidactic techniques to make everything stick. So, get ready to practice out loud with us. Let's jump in.
All right, as we promised, let's get started with your first scenario, the check-in counter. Imagine this. You walk up confidently, smile, and say, "Hi, I'd like to check in for my flight to New York." See how straightforward and natural that feels?
Exactly. And if you're traveling to a different destination, just swap out New York for wherever you're headed. Let's say it together now. Hi, I'd like to check in for my flight to destination.
So you've got that part down. Then they might ask something like, "Do you have any bags to check in?" How do you respond?
You could say, "Yes, I have one bag," or "No, I'm only traveling with carry-on luggage." Can you try saying one of those out loud?
Advanced learners, switch it up a little. Try this. "I have one suitcase to check in and a carry-on bag with me."
And don't forget to be polite. A little kindness goes a long way. So add please like, "Yes, I have one bag, please."
Right. Now here's a pro scenario. Let's say you need to clarify something. You can ask, "Could you repeat that, please?" Or, "Could you confirm if luggage is included?" Those phrases help you navigate those small, unexpected moments.
Oh, and before we move on, seat preferences. Super important. You might hear, "Do you prefer an aisle or a window seat?" Just respond with, "I'd like an aisle seat, please." Or, "A window seat would be great, thank you."
Let's practice both for good measure. Say it after me. "I'd like an aisle seat, please."
Now try. "A window seat would be great, thank you."
Nice! That's going to make everything at the counter so much smoother. Great work at the check-in counter. Now let's move to the next step, security screening. When you approach, you might hear, "Do you have any liquids in your bag?" How would you respond to that?
A simple answer could be, "No, I don't." Or, if you have liquids, say, "Yes, they're in a clear bag."
Advanced learners, let's try adding a bit more detail. "Yes, I have some in a transparent bag as per the regulations." Say that out loud now.
Let's practice both versions. First, "No, I don't."
And now, "Yes, they're in a clear bag."
Great job, you're getting there.
Another thing you're likely to hear is, "Please take off your shoes and remove laptops from your bag." A casual response is, "Okay, sure."
Or to sound more advanced, "Of course, let me do that right away." Go ahead and repeat after me. "Of course, let me do that right away."
Right, and once you're through security, you'll find yourself at the boarding gate. Let's talk about what to say there.
If you're unsure which line to join, you could ask, "Excuse me, is this the line for Group B?" Practicing that can help you feel more confident.
Or you might say, "Could you let me know when Group B starts boarding?" Try both of those now. First, "Excuse me, is this the line for Group B?"
And now, "Could you let me know when Group B starts boarding?"
Keep in mind how you say it matters as much as what you say. Be clear, polite, and above all, confident.
Exactly. Those little interactions can set the tone for a positive travel experience.
All right, now that you've mastered these phrases, you're ready to head to your seat and settle in. All right, you've made it through the boarding gate and to your seat. Congrats. Now that you're on the plane, let's talk about settling in and making your flight a bit easier. First up, addressing seating mix-ups. Imagine this. You get to your row and someone's in your seat. What do you say?
A polite option is, "Excuse me, I think this is my seat." Simple and clear, right?
Yeah, and if you want to be a little more formal, you could say, "Sorry, I believe you're in my seat. Would you mind checking your ticket?" That one adds a bit more confidence.
Try saying both out loud now. "Excuse me, I think this is my seat."
And now, "Sorry, I believe you're in my seat. Would you mind checking your ticket?"
Perfect. Politeness is key, especially in tight spaces like airplanes.
Exactly. Now let's move on to breaking the silence with your seatmate if you feel up to it. For example, you could just ask, "Hi, are you traveling for work or vacation?" It's light, friendly, and easy.
Advanced learners, you might try this. "What brings you to destination? Are you visiting family, or is it a work trip?" It's a bit more engaging.
That kind of question can really open up a conversation. Give both versions a try now. "Hi, are you traveling for work or vacation?"
And now, What brings you to destination? Are you visiting family, or is it a work trip?
Great. Remember, the tone matters too. Keep it warm and friendly.
Now let's talk about a common situation. Asking for assistance. If it's something like getting a drink, you could say, "Excuse me, may I have a glass of water?"
Or for a more advanced option, "Excuse me, could I trouble you for a glass of water, please?" It's super polite and a bit more formal. Say both now. "Excuse me, may I have a glass of water?"
Then try, "Excuse me, could I trouble you for a glass of water, please?"
Nice job. Those little phrases can go a long way in making the flight staff's job easier and your experience better.
And that wraps it up. Today, we've covered everything from navigating seating to starting conversations and asking for what you need politely and confidently.
Yeah, and honestly, just practicing these phrases out loud now, while they're fresh in your mind, will make a huge difference. It's all about building that muscle memory, you know?
Absolutely. And don't forget, this is all about growing your confidence step by step. No need to rush or feel perfect all at once.
On that note, we'd love to hear from you. What did you think of today's episode? Drop your thoughts or suggestions in the comments. We're here to help you grow.
And if you found this helpful, share it with a friend or loved one who's learning English too. Together, we can all keep improving.
Thanks for joining us on NeuroEnglish Now. Until next time, safe travels, confident conversations, and happy learning.
Bye for now.
Hello and welcome back to NeuroEnglish Now. I'm John, and as always, I'm joined by my fantastic co-host, Sarah.
Hi everyone. We're thrilled to have you with us today. If you're a beginner learning English, or you just want to sound a little more natural, this episode is going to be perfect for you.
That's right. Today's all about mastering 30 essential English phrases that'll help you communicate confidently in everyday situations. And of course, we'll be explaining how to use them effectively, so you'll be ready to tackle all kinds of conversations.
Absolutely. So whether you're just listening in today, or you're armed with a notepad ready to jot down notes, we've got you covered. Oh, and don't forget, practicing these phrases out loud is the key to getting fluent. You might feel silly doing it at first, but trust us, it works.
Great tip, Sarah. Okay, so let's jump straight in. We're kicking things off with the kind of phrases that everyone needs for daily interactions. Those simple greetings and small talk that help break the ice when meeting someone new. Now, as promised, let's dive straight into those essential greetings and small talk phrases. These are truly the foundation of any conversation, and mastering them will help you feel more comfortable in everyday interactions, wherever you are.
Exactly. And, even though they seem super basic, mastering greetings can make someone feel instantly comfortable talking to you. It's a small thing, but it really matters.
Totally. So let's dive into some essential phrases. The classics, as I like to call them. Hi, how are you? Or nice to meet you. These set the tone, and honestly, they break the ice, don't they?
They do. And another one that's really common is, "How was your weekend?" It's such an easy follow-up to a simple hello, especially on Mondays. It just shows you're interested, which is huge in English-speaking cultures.
Right? So here's something to try. Next time you meet someone new, maybe a coworker or even just someone at a coffee shop, start with, "Hi, how are you?" And then try adding something specific like, "Did you catch the game last night?"
Oh, that's a great idea. Small talk isn't about having deep conversations. It's, small. And it's just about connecting over something light, whether it's the weather, a TV show, or even the line at the grocery store.
Yeah, and that's something a lot of learners don't realize. Small talk's not about the topic itself, it's about getting comfortable. And here's the thing, in English-speaking countries, this kind of talk happens everywhere. It's just part of the culture.
Exactly. It's not so much about what you say, but the fact that you're willing to start a conversation. And, let's admit it. It can feel really awkward at first, right? But trust us, the more you practice, the easier it gets.
Yes, and practicing can be fun. You can role play with a friend or even practice in front of a mirror. Say, "Hi, how are you?" And imagine different responses like, "Oh, I'm great, thanks. How about you?" Just, play with it like that.
That's such a good tip. And if you're someone who's nervous about starting small talk, just remember, people generally appreciate the effort. Trust me, they're not judging your grammar or vocabulary. They're just glad you're making the effort.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, these phrases are tools, and the more you use them, the sharper your skills become. So we've talked about mastering small talk, but let's take it to a real-life situation. Imagine walking into a cafe or restaurant. It's one of those everyday moments where small talk meets practicality. You want to place an order, but sometimes the words just seem to disappear, don't they?
Totally. It's so common, and honestly, it can feel kind of intimidating at first. But once you've got a few key phrases down, it gets much, much easier.
Exactly. So here's where we start. Begin with, can I have, or I'd like, followed by, whatever you're ordering. For example, can I have a coffee, please? Or I'd like a sandwich, please.
Right. And adding please at the end makes your request sound polite, which is super important in English-speaking countries. Plus, don't forget to say thank you when you get your order.
Yeah, manners go a long way. Now, if you want to step it up a bit, like if you're ready to sound more advanced, you can add specifics. For instance, instead of just, can I have a coffee, please? You could say, can I have a cappuccino with almond milk, please?
Oh, I love that example. And you can do the same with food, like, I'd like a chicken sandwich without mayo, please. Little details like that make your requests clearer and more natural.
Exactly. And here's something important. It's not just about the words you use, it's also the tone of your voice. It should be warm, friendly, and confident, like you're sure about what you're ordering but still polite.
Yes. And if you ever feel stuck or unsure, remember, you can always rely on basics like pointing to the menu and saying, "Can I have this, please?" It's a simple trick, but it works perfectly.
Totally agree. Oh, one more thing. Don't forget phrases for the end of your meal. Something like, can I get the check, please? That one's a must-know if you're dining out.
It is. And if you want to practice, try imagining different situations. For example, pretend you're ordering at your favorite cafe. What would you say? Or, next time you're actually out, try making your order in English.
Yeah, and the more you practice, the more these phrases will feel like second nature. Okay, so those are the essentials for navigating restaurants and cafes. Polite, simple, and clear. That's the goal. All right, now that we've covered how to navigate ordering at restaurants and cafes, let's move on to another key skill, talking about yourself. This comes up all the time, whether you're making new friends, introducing yourself in a class, or even at work.
Right? And the great thing about learning to talk about yourself is that it's personal. No one knows you better than, well, you. It's like having a cheat sheet to start conversations.
Exactly. So let's break it down and get started with the basics. A really common way to start is by saying, I'm your name. Like I'd say, I'm John, or Hi, I'm John. It's such a simple phrase, but it opens up the conversation.
Also, where you're from is a great follow-up. Something like, I'm from Brazil, or I'm from Japan. You can add wherever you're currently living too, like, I live in Berlin.
Yeah, and if you want to take it a step further, you can mention what you do. For example, I work as a graphic designer, or I'm a student. It's a great way to share something about your life.
Oh, and hobbies. Don't forget to talk about what you like to do in your free time. Something like, in my free time, I like to cook. Or even, I'm learning English because I want to connect with more people.
Absolutely. And here's a pro tip for learners. Experiment with combining these phrases. So instead of just saying, I'm Sarah, and then stopping, you could add details like, I'm Sarah, I'm from London, and I love playing the guitar.
Yeah, it makes your introduction more, complete, and it gives people something to ask you about. It's like you're opening the door for a conversation to keep flowing.
Precisely. Okay, here's a fun challenge for you listeners. Take a moment now and say out loud where you're from, what you do, and something you enjoy. Go ahead, pause us if you need to, and give it a try.
And don't worry if it feels awkward at first. The more you practice, the smoother it'll get. Think of it like working out a muscle. It gets stronger the more you use it.
Totally agree. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's all part of the process. Just get comfortable hearing yourself say the words. Because honestly, confidence makes a huge difference when you're talking about yourself.
Exactly. And if you're someone who gets nervous, remember to keep it simple at first. Even a short introduction works. It's all about starting.
So true. All right, feel free to practice this as much as you want. Talking about yourself is one of the best ways to connect with people, and it's something you'll use again and again. Now that we've practiced talking about ourselves and building connections, let's move on to shopping, another everyday activity where English phrases come in super handy. It's something we all do, and having the right words can make the experience a lot smoother and less intimidating.
Absolutely. Whether you're buying clothes, groceries, or just window shopping, these phrases will definitely come in handy.
Exactly. All right, so here's a basic but very useful question. Excuse me, do you have this in a smaller size? It's such a good one for shopping, especially when you're looking for clothes or shoes that don't quite fit.
Oh, definitely. And along those lines, asking, How much is this? Is another must-know phrase. It's simple, but you'll use it all the time when you're out shopping.
Right? And let's take that a step further. Say you're picking out something specific. You can add details like, how much is this red jacket? It makes it clear what you're asking about, especially in a busy store.
Yeah, and another one I love is, can I try this on? It's perfect for when you're shopping for clothes, and you're not sure about the fit. Super straightforward and polite.
Exactly. Now, when it comes to payment, here's another useful phrase. Do you accept credit cards? It's always good to know before heading to the register, especially if you're in a different country.
Oh, and don't forget, when you're ready to buy something, you can say, I'll take this, please. It's polite, clear, and lets the cashier know you've made your choice.
Good point. And here's something important. Always add please and thank you. In English-speaking cultures, politeness makes a big impression, especially in customer service situations.
Absolutely. It's such a small thing, but it makes interactions much smoother. And if you're not sure what to say, just sticking to basics like thank you can work wonders.
Exactly. So, here's an idea, listeners. Next time you go shopping, try using one or two of these phrases. Maybe start with, excuse me, how much is this? And see how it goes. Small steps make a huge difference.
Yes, and like we always say, don't stress about being perfect. It's all about communication, and people will appreciate the effort you're making.
Absolutely. And remember, practice makes these phrases flow naturally, so the more you use them, the easier shopping in English will become. Now that we've covered useful shopping phrases, let's take it a step further, expressing preferences and opinions. This not only helps you during conversations like shopping, but also makes your interactions much more engaging.
Definitely. It also shows your personality and what you care about, which, helps people connect with you on a deeper level.
Exactly. It goes beyond just answering a question and makes you part of the conversation. Take, I like Italian food, for example. It's simple, right? But you could extend it to, I like Italian food because the flavors are so rich. Just that little addition makes it feel so much more personal.
Right. And you can do the same with things you don't like. For instance, instead of just saying, I don't like spicy dishes, you could add something like, they're too hot for me. It's okay to keep it short and simple. Just be honest.
Oh, honesty is huge. And another great phrase is, I think it's perfect for sharing your opinions. Like, I think this movie is amazing, or I think this shirt looks great on you. It gives you tons of ways to express yourself without overcomplicating things.
And, in my opinion, works really well too. You could say something like, in my opinion, this restaurant is the best in town. It sounds confident, but still polite, which is always a good balance to strike.
Yeah, and here's the thing, your preferences are totally yours, so don't feel like there's a right or wrong thing to say. Whether your favorite color is blue or purple, people just want to hear what you think. I mean, that's how conversations go, right?
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to elaborate when you can. Instead of just saying, I like this cafe, you could add, I like this cafe because the coffee is amazing and the staff are super friendly. It adds depth, and you'll sound more engaged.
Yes, and here's a challenge, listeners. Next time you're talking with someone in English, try to include one of these phrases. Maybe say something like, I think this song is awesome, or, in my opinion, summer is the best season. It's a great way to practice.
Totally. And if you're not sure what to say, start with simple likes and dislikes. Like, I like tea, or, I don't like cold weather. Even short phrases like these can start a conversation and help you feel more comfortable.
Exactly. The more you practice sharing your preferences, the easier it gets to express your opinions. And before you know it, this'll all feel completely natural. So now that we've talked about expressing opinions and preferences, let's switch gears a bit and focus on something equally important, using English to navigate places. Whether you're traveling or just exploring your own city, asking for directions is absolutely a must-know skill, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It's super practical, and honestly, it can save you a lot of stress. Plus, it's a great way to connect with people and practice polite conversation.
Exactly. So, let's start with some key phrases. A common one, of course, is, excuse me, can you help me? Super polite, super simple, and it opens the door for you to ask anything else like, where's the nearest bus stop? Or, how do I get to the train station?
Right. And when you get a response, make sure you're actively listening. People might give you a lot of information quickly, so it's okay to politely ask, could you repeat that, please? Or, Can you speak a bit slower, please?
Yes, I honestly love those phrases because they're so useful in real life and not just for directions. They're like these multitaskers in your vocabulary toolkit.
Totally. And here's a tip. If you're not confident understanding everything, focus on key words, like street names or landmarks. Sometimes you don't need to catch every single word to get where you're going.
Absolutely. And just being polite goes a long way, like ending with "thank you for your help." It's such a simple way to leave a positive impression, even if you're feeling a little lost.
So true. And, speaking of getting lost, it's actually a great excuse to practice English. Try imagining scenarios, like asking for directions to a museum or the nearest park, and then say the phrases out loud to yourself.
Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting. You can combine these directional phrases with expressions about your preferences like, "I prefer to walk instead of taking the bus," or even, "I like exploring cities on foot."
Yeah, or something like, I enjoy taking taxis because they're more convenient. Adding preferences makes the conversation richer and more personal, you know? It's another chance to practice expressing yourself confidently.
Totally. And it shows that you're not just looking for help, you're also sharing a bit about yourself. That's what keeps communication interesting.
Exactly. So next time you're out, challenge yourself to use directional phrases and maybe throw in a preference. Something simple like, I prefer quiet places, can really elevate your conversation skills.
Oh, I love that idea. It's all about layering what you've learned, right? Directions, preferences, and of course a touch of politeness. It's a winning combination.
And there you have it. From navigating places to expressing preferences, we've covered some crucial skills today. We hope these essential phrases help you feel more confident speaking English.
Absolutely. The more you use these phrases, the more natural they'll start to feel. It's like building a habit, right? The more you practice, the easier it gets.
Exactly. And remember, don't worry about making mistakes along the way. I mean, that's just how we learn.
It really is. And honestly, the important thing is just to keep practicing. Use these phrases when you're ordering coffee, asking for directions, or just making small talk. Little by little, you'll notice a big difference.
So true. And don't forget to have fun with it. Language is all about making connections, you know? And every time you try, you're taking another step forward.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, thanks for tuning in to this episode of NeuroEnglish Now. If you found it helpful, share it with a friend who's learning English. We'd love to hear how you're using these phrases in your own conversations.
Yes, definitely. And feel free to leave us a comment or a message with your favorite phrase from today's episode. We'd love to hear from you.
And on that note, we'll see you next time. Keep practicing, and as always, happy learning.
Hello, and welcome back to NeuroEnglish Now. I'm Tim.
And I'm Jessica. We're so excited to have you with us today. If you've ever wondered how to express possibility, ability, permission, or even give advice in English, this episode is for you.
That's right. Today, we're diving into modal verbs, those small but powerful words that can completely change the meaning of a sentence. And don't worry, we'll break it down with simple examples and even throw in some advanced variations for our more experienced listeners.
Exactly. So let's get started. First off, what are modal verbs?
Modal verbs are special verbs that help us express things like ability, possibility, necessity, permission, and more. They include words like can, could, may, might, must, shall, should, will, or would.
Think of them as helper verbs that add meaning to the main verb. Here's the key. Modal verbs are always followed by the base form of the main verb.
Exactly. Now, let's break down the most common modal verbs with examples.
We use can, primarily to express ability or to ask for permission. Let's look at ability first. When we say, I can speak 3 languages, we mean that I have the ability to do so. Similarly, she can run fast, tells us about her physical capability. Now let's move on to permission. When you ask, can I leave early today? You're asking if it's allowed. On the other hand, if someone says to you, you can park here, they are giving you permission to do so. Finally, let's explore a slightly more advanced way to express these ideas. Instead of simply saying can, you could say, I'm capable of speaking 3 languages to express ability. And instead of, can I leave early today? You could ask, is it possible for me to leave early today? These variations add a bit more nuance to your language.
Nice upgrade. It sounds a bit more formal, perfect for business settings. The word could is the past form of can, but it has other uses too. We use it for polite requests and to talk about possibility. For past ability, you might say, when I was younger, I could climb trees easily. For polite requests, could you help me with this? Sounds more polite than can you help me? And to express possibility, you could say, it could rain later, meaning it's possible. A more advanced and very polite way to ask for help, instead of could you help me, is would you mind giving me a hand with this?
The modal verb may is typically used for formal permission or to express possibility. For example, you might say, may I come in? As a formal way to ask for permission. To express possibility, you could say, it may snow tomorrow. Might is very similar to may, but often suggests a slightly lower degree of certainty. For example, I might go to the party tonight indicates you're not yet sure. For more natural-sounding alternatives, especially in spoken English, you could say, there's a chance it will snow tomorrow, instead of it may snow tomorrow.
Good point. Might sounds a little more casual, and may feels more formal. The word must is a strong modal verb used to express a necessity or a strong conclusion. Be sure to think of rules like, you must wear a seatbelt. As a conclusion, when you're almost certain about something, you might say, she must be tired after such a long journey. This shows that you are of your own acceptance are convinced. More natural-sounding alternatives to must include it's important to wear a seatbelt for the necessity, and she's probably exhausted after the trip for the deduction. The latter is less formal, but very common in spoken English.
The word shall is a modal verb that is generally considered more formal and is more commonly used in British English. It is primarily used to express offers or suggestions. For offers, you might say, shall I open the window? This is a polite way of offering to do something. For suggestions, shall we go for a walk? Is a common way to propose an activity. While shall is still used, especially in formal contexts, there are more casual alternatives available. For instance, instead of saying shall we go for a walk, you could say, how about we go for a walk? Which is a more modern and informal way of making a suggestion.
The word should is a helpful modal verb for giving advice or recommendations. For example, you could say, you should drink more water as a general health recommendation, or you should see a doctor if someone is unwell. More nuanced ways to give similar advice include, it might be a good idea to drink more water, or I'd recommend seeing a doctor. These alternatives soften the advice slightly while still conveying the same message.
The words will and would are modal verbs used for talking about the future and hypothetical situations, respectively. Will is straightforwardly used for future actions, as in I will call you tomorrow. Would, on the other hand, is used for hypothetical situations such as I would travel more if I had the time, and also for polite requests or offers like would you like some coffee? More natural-sounding alternatives include, I'm planning to call you tomorrow, instead of, I will call you tomorrow. And if I had more time, I would definitely travel more. To replace the hypothetical, I would travel more if I had the time.
We have covered the following points. Can and could are used to express ability, permission, and possibility. May and might are used to express possibility and formal permission. Must is used to express necessity and strong deductions. Shall is used for formal suggestions. Should is used for giving advice. Will and would are used for future plans and hypothetical situations.
Let's practice together. Repeat after me. I can speak English confidently. You should practice every day. It might rain tomorrow. Could you help me with this?
That's it for today's episode of NeuroEnglish Now.
If you found this helpful, don't forget to subscribe and share it with a friend.